Real estate agents, are you fretting over the $418 million settlement of the National Association of Realtors? Well, I got some good news for you because this could be one of the greatest opportunities that we have ever seen in the history of real estate. Hey, I'm Eliot, one of the co-founders of Zoodealio. As always, I am so excited to be with you. Hey, real quick before we get started, make sure that you remember to subscribe or like this video depending on where you're watching it. Feel free to share it. One of the best ways that we're able to circulate this and help out fellow real estate agents is to share it. So thank you so much for doing that in advance, and I really hope you enjoyed today's content. All right, well, I hope everybody is off to a great start this week. As you may have heard, the National Association of Realtors has settled the commission lawsuits, buyer commission lawsuits, for $418 million. So rather than say settled, they have reached a settlement, an agreement, and it will need to be reviewed by a judge and ultimately be approved before this will be off the backs of about 99% of the agents out there going forward. Like I said, today's going to be a little bit different as we are going to definitely be looking and kind of peeling back the layers on this, because I think that it is so fitting for us as people that operate and work in Zoodealio and, use cash offers to generate seller opportunities, not only to service our existing clients or create new clients with unique cash offers, and then ultimately being able to bring optionality to our audience, right? And being able to capitalize on those opportunities. The National Association of Realtors has just settled or proposed a settlement of $418 million because of the buyer commission lawsuit settlement. So that was reached last Friday. You probably got the email like I did, where they are ultimately posing this. It must be reviewed by a judge. As we all know, this could take months or even a year, a long time for it to be there, as long as the Department of Justice is happy with this and the changes that they are posing to bring about. So I wanted to kind of peel this back as a group of Zoodealio members that are operating with cash offers and really kind of take a look at this through a different lens, because there's a lot of agents that I was talking with over the weekend. Certainly saw in many of the forums, Facebook, etc., that there's a lot of fear and definitely got peppered in news feeds and YouTube, etc., that this is uprooting real estate as we know it, that this is really not going to favor consumers. This is, just it's all these different opinions and variations of what goes on. So I wanted to kind of peel that back, have an open dialogue with us today to see ultimately what you guys think. So I have a question here before we kind of get rolling. Number one, have you already started to pivot in your business by focusing more on sellers? Have you started to put that buyer agency agreement in place? What measures have you done to start preparing for this? As we all knew that this was a day that was coming. And again, I'm going to get to the crux of it here. And I mean, not to be a spoiler alert, but as most of you guys know that have been around and worked with me, this is nothing more than an opportunity for true practitioners. Definitely at Zoodealio, when you have optionality that creates solutions around this for sellers and the actual buyer, you are going to be on the receiving end of this hysteria. So as I was sharing before, if you guys were anything like me, on Friday earlier in the morning, you got an email from the National Association of Realtors that says that they had reached an agreement to resolve the home seller class action lawsuit. So I wanted to kind of take peel back the layers on this. And really, what does this say? What is one of the biggest things on this that we could do to prepare ourselves, especially with cash offers? And we're looking at these particular strategies, right? Especially when we look at for sale by owners, when we look at cancels, when we look at expireds, when we look at some of these prime areas of ways that we could go start a conversation with a cash offer. This is really another tremendous opportunity. And so one of the things I want to look at this, that's going to be one of the biggest changes that's due to, or supposed to come about, I believe it's in July of this year. So we're talking just a few short months away, that ultimately the buyer's compensation disclosure is going to be removed from all of the essentially all of the MLSs. In most MLSs, if those of you guys that don't know, you have to have at least $1 of compensation offered in order for the property to be entered into the MLS. That's how most of the MLSs work, right? So whether it was $1, 2%, 2.5%, 4%, right? Sometimes builders will be offering some kind of crazy compensation to try to inspire buyers' representatives to really showcase that property. Well, and that's exactly what this was about, right? Is that this was an unfair practice to where it, really unincentivized the agent to not show that particular property if they didn't know the compensation. Now, any smart or savvy agent, it's not that you couldn't have gone and negotiated, right? Like I know a lot of times in California, they would have these types of practices have been going on for quite some time there, and where ultimately they might have had a $1 or $100 compensation outlined there, but it doesn't mean that you couldn't have gone in and negotiated seller concessions. And that's actually one of the things that I think is going to happen immediately in this. And as I read through part of it, that's one of the areas that they're going to be talking about, is that a seller can actually disclose through concessions to the buyer the set amount that they are going to be able to contribute. Now, with that said, that's really kind of the disclosure I believe the Department of Justice is looking for in this, where, hey, buyer, you're going to get X percentage of contributions, and if you choose to give that to your buyer's representative, then you could do that action. Now, that's actually what the whole antitrust piece of that was, is that agents really didn't have to negotiate for their commission, right? It was just this set standard, even though we all know it was, in the background, kind of, a negotiable term, but it didn't really give the buyer a lot of reason to negotiate that, because it was coming from the seller and it was a disclosed item that didn't always show to the particular buyer on the actual public view of that MLS document. So again, there's little nuances in different MLSs around the country, but these are things of just kind of getting you the crux, or the big piece of what I believe the immediate changes are going to be. Now, again, whether this ends up getting approved by the judge, whether the DOJ doesn't step in and decides to sprinkle a little bit more onto this, I could see all of those things happening. But again, I think this caused an earthquake, if you will, in our industry, because they had vowed to pretty much contest this and fight this. And so this is where ultimately they'd even, I even saw in some other things that they had were considering, bankruptcy in the event that they had lost, but that wouldn't necessarily stop things from going forward and agents in the future getting damages, because it would just constantly contribute, in the type of bankruptcy that potentially would be filed if they would have lost and, had a $5, $6, $7+ billion lawsuit that was levied against them. So I, for one, think that this particular move is actually smart. I think, the more that we can put, a line in the sand and be able to move forward and take these changes and ultimately adapt and thrive, well, guess what? For us entrepreneurs and us people that have been in the business, always finding that way, this is another pivotal moment in time of where we can adapt and thrive. So I want to actually kind of take a look at a couple of these particular things. One of the pieces I think that's really important on this is, that media, and this is going to be around us for several, weeks, months, maybe even the next better part of this, 24. And one of the biggest things that is huge to me in this is the Federal Reserve, right? That I've been hearing a lot of this. There's a couple of stats that I think are actually some of the tremendous opportunities in this. Number one is there's some predictions that as much as 500,000 or even up to 1 million real estate agents could leave the business over this. And when we are looking down the barrel of less transactions, again this year, especially from 2021 or 2022, excuse me, where 23, transactions fell to about 4 million from, I believe, almost an all-time high, and 22 at roughly 6 million. That's a 33% hit in actual transaction count. Well, when you look at that there's approximately $100 billion commission paid out every single year. Well, this statement from the Federal Reserve is saying that they believe that this is going to change the compensation to buyers agents to the tune of about $30 billion annually. Right, so that they're saying that that's $30 billion that's going to stay in either the seller's pockets, the buyer's agent's pockets, excuse me, not the buyer's agent's pockets, or the buyer's pockets, right? So now whether that compensation goes from the seller to the buyer and they can buy down this high rate, there's just a lot of different things I think that we need to really position ourselves to be pros at, to capitalize on this, to educate that public, to stand out, right? This is content creation dream, because you can create such a niche to your audience and dominate that particular space. So this is an opportunity to really sharpen that saw, speak to it at a high level and a consistent level. And if you do so, you'll be actually receiving the fruits of these efforts of yours. So again, I'm curious to think though, now that our audience is built up a little bit here too, really curious question for everybody on this. Do you think that this is going to affect buyer compensation as a whole? Do you think it's going to affect it as much as, we're talking about a 50% hit here, guys. So if $100 billion a year is paid out in commissions, right? Half of that goes to the listing agent, half of that goes to the buyer's agent, roughly. So when they're saying $30 billion, you're talking about roughly a 50%, almost a 60% hit in compensation to a buyer's representative when a transaction goes on. So I'm curious, do you guys believe it's going to be that substantial? Question one. And question two, what are you doing to prepare yourself to navigate these things? Okay, so let's move along here. And then, like I said, we'll get to the group discussion here in just a moment. Like I said, I'm personally, an optimist. And quite frankly, I think that comes from, I got into the business in 2006. And, that was the kind of the tail end of the good. But it shifted hard in 2007. And then it really just rained down in 2008 and 2009. You see the industry got obliterated, right? We went all the way up to 1.2 million real estate agents, and it went all the way down to 900,000, right? So it got obliterated from an agent count, transaction counts. I worked in a market here in the Phoenix metro where I saw listing inventory as high as 65,000 homes on the market. The absorption rate was like 18 to 24 months at times. It was terrible, right? So what I'm getting at is what we had to do to adapt and thrive in that particular time is you had to have massive inventory. I had to represent 30 to 50 to 60 listings at any given time to try to really attract the amount of buyers that were needed. Not to mention prices were plummeting, right? My average sales price, I believe, was like $135,000. And so when you really look at those times, that was an opportunity to find a niche and double down on that particular niche. I think we are literally on one of those precipice opportunities again. With this change that we all know, it definitely brings an opportunity. And so what I want to do real quick is I want to explore some of these opportunities with you guys real quick as a group. And so these niches, again, one of my favorite sayings you guys I'm sure hear me say often is riches are in the niches. And before I start running through my list here, I want to explore this. If we really look at the doubling down on certain things, like let's take doctors just because I think it's one of the most polarizing examples of this, is the riches are in the niches. Well, you have the specialists, right? Yes, you have a general practitioner, family general practitioners, but a lot of times the doctors that make a lot of money, such as surgeons, such as podiatrist, ear, nose, and throat, like all the different specialists that they have through there, requires additional education, and it requires the doubling down so they can speak about it as they are the expert. Well, I want to challenge you guys to be thinking about your business in that exact same mentality. So for example, right now, investors, meaning non-owner occupied homeowners, are a tremendous opportunity. okay? Especially when you have a product like the Cash Plus. So what I want to do is give you an illustration real quick on how you can use this feature and double down by finding these people are very easy to find, right? Through your local title partner, they can usually identify them for you. PropStream is one, Property Radar. There's several different ways that you can find non-owner occupied property or properties, right? And then of course you can find their main physical address and contact information to be able to contact them. And especially if they've owned that property for 7+ years, in most cases, there's going to be some deferred maintenance. And when they've already depreciated the property, right, which those of you guys that don't know what that is you can depreciate the property a certain percentage per year over the duration of the ownership, and it's an additional tax incentive that they'll make. So when they've depreciated that particular property, receive the tax benefit, they will be able to potentially now come in through the Cash Plus, right? Tenant moves out, come in, improve the property. They don't swing a hammer. Let's say that it's an out-of-state owner. They don't have any trades set up locally. They've worked with a property management company. There are all kinds of variations that we could go through, but this is really an opportunity for you to talk about how you can remodel their house, sell it for top dollar, and maximize their return. So now they've made money from a monthly basis, depending on, especially if they bought it and refied and have a low mortgage payment. But they have an opportunity to now where they could improve the property and capitalize on it. And this is a niche that you are bringing to these said people that are made the decision for monetary gain, right? The whole ownership is based around monetary gain. And so you have an opportunity to do that even more, okay? So this is the next big one. I actually think that this is going to be a huge, huge opportunity. So for sale by owners, right? So now they've always been kind of playing this game, and the whole reason why they were doing this in the first place was the fact to avoid paying commission 99% of the time. Well, now we have an opportunity to actually approach these guys from the buy side, right? Because now if they sell their house and they're trying to cut it out, and for them to try to get any representation, to find properties, to get inside track, to get advice on inspection, to get advice on loan programs, acquisition strategies, different things that are going on, well, they're going to need you more than ever now. And so what you guys can really do on this from a double down effort is you can now approach these guys, because I do believe there's going to be some commission pressure. And I think that we'll be getting to it more here in just one second, but I think there's going to be really an opportunity to where you're going to be able to list a house and also represent that person. And it's going to be a bit more of a, not necessarily, yes, standalone fees, but more of a blended blanket fees. And I think you're going to see a lot of teams and high producing organizations adopt that strategy, right? Because people are going to need to sell their house and then also want representation in buying a house. So it's going to be even a better opportunity for us, because you're going to say, hey, instead of having to pay me to represent you as on the buy side, what we're going to do is we're going to charge you X on the sell side, and we're going to make sure that we represent you on the buy side. And so whether you say, hey, it's this much here and this much here as a blanketed fee, again, I think that we're going to start looking and seeing those types of things. And the other thing I really want to make sure that I want everybody that's a member of Zoodealio that's seeing this to remember that you have tools here that are going to help you get into those conversations. Number one is obviously just the straight cash offer that starts it. Then the different cash offer options that you have. But don't forget about the buy side, when we can buy their house in cash on their behalf, helping them negotiate the very best deal and those additional seller concessions. So that's going to be a conversation that so many listing agents are now going to be inviting sellers to have is, hey, what contributions are we willing to make for the buyer? Especially when you have markets that the selling price is higher than the national average of roughly $415,000. So if your average sales price is higher than $415,000 in your municipality, I really think that you're going to see that those seller concessions come in hot and heavy. Here's why. When a buyer needs to come up with 3.5% to 5%, 10%, or 20% down, and you're already in a higher price piece, and now you're asking them to come up with another 1%, 2%, 3% to compensate you as an agent, that's going to be more of a challenge. And those sellers are not going to want to risk the lack of slowdown and having buyers enter the market slower. So the listing agents, I believe, will be savvy in saying, hey, in order for us to achieve this higher price, in order for us to make your listing stand out and be more attractive to buyers that now have to take on more cost, we're going to want to aid them with some of those costs that they're going to have. And so this is a strategy that I've seen this from day one. It's not rocket science that this potentially will roll out. Now, the only caveat on that is making sure that the DOJ the Department of Justice will, as this all passes through, that they'll even allow those strategies to happen, right? Then from there, we could see them possibly going into the financing side of things. There's so many different things, the way that this could happen. But again, back to our riches are in the niches. For sale by owner, like I said, this is a new polarizing opportunity for me. This is an earth-shaking opportunity for those FSBOs, because now there's so many times that, their friend was an agent. Hey, you represent me on the buy. Well, now, if that agent can't represent them on the buy and they're not going to get paid, they're going to need to work with an agent, a savvy, experienced agent, to sell their house and almost kind of do a 2-for-1. So it's really a tremendous opportunity, guys. And again, remember, that's one of my biggest reasons why I'm such a, from day one of being in this business for now almost 20 years, I've been a huge proponent of, list to live, is because that's your storefront. That is your inventory. That's your lead magnet. That's how you attract and meet new other prospects. You use this widget to not only meet other sellers, but to also meet buyers. And when you do it right, a lot of times you can meet 2 buyers per every 1 listing, right? That's just, a strategy in so many books or sales strategies. Okay, next one we're going to talk about is divorce. This, let's face it, with inflation, with cost of living, with so much financial stress going on in America right now, divorce has been up. It's been up since COVID. And there's just a tremendous opportunity for us as agents in this, right? I'm not trying to say prey on somebody else's, demise of their relationship, but ultimately, people are choosing to go their different way. And the stat on it is that 53% of the people that get a divorce own their house. 53%. So that's a tremendous opportunity for you to be able to get those notifications when people file for divorce. What are they going to do for the house? And being able to bring them a cash offer that allows them to pick their close date, allows them to lease back their house, and ultimately cash out their partner, let them go on their way while things go on. You guys are potentially saving grace. Think about the gift that you're bringing them, to where so many people are having to live in the same house. They're frustrated. They're not talking, etc. But they have to stay in the same house because financially they can't go out and get another property until things happen and move forward with the divorce. Well, think about it. If you can bring this opportunity to them, the sell now, move later, or the cash plus with a late checkout, they can cash out now, give them their equity or portion of their equity, let their others, the spouse that's going to move out, let them move out and go and do their thing. The other person can, kind of stay in the house until they find where they want to go. And again, it's just a tremendous opportunity for you to be able to A, start a conversation, and B, solve a problem. Okay, another one. Right? I think so many people on this, we could see I don't know if you guys saw, but Zillow stock, Redfin stock, Compass stock, EXP, virtually every big publicly traded real estate company anywhere, they were all hit on Friday when this announcement came out. And that's because of obviously half of the compensation that is coming from that buy side. But Zillow and the portal companies, right? The portal wars that have been going on, such as the Redfin, Realtor.com, Zillow, Homes.com now. So many of these, the juggernauts that are in the space got hit. And that's because they make major monetization from capturing buyers' information and selling these leads to buyers' agents. Well, they now are going to be a lot less value. So this is where I want us to now capitalize, right? You have the ability inside your IDX, right, which is your lead capture, your buyer website, okay? So when your website that you have, that you're showcasing properties that you're, whether it be Sync, Boomtown, your local IDX site, right? Just kind of giving you an idea or a perspective of what I'm talking about. When that property is displayed, most of them will allow you to build some type of custom button, etc. What you're going to want to do on that site is you want to say, hey, do you own an existing house and need a cash offer? Want to sell and need an offer on your existing house? Click here and get a no obligation cash offer, right? So these are all different things that you could do to be able to backlink those things. And that's going to become pertinent now more than ever, right? Without a doubt, everybody that, the sellers are still going to start by shopping for their new house. 99% of the time, they are not going to move from the house that they're in until they identify and start looking and getting a feel for what they're looking for, even if it's a relocation, etc. That's just the natural process that goes on. So I don't want you guys to forget about doubling down on the existing buyers. And a lot of times buyers now, you're going to see a lot of the less experienced agents be more fearful and not wanting to work with the buyers because they have to get the part of that, the NAR settlement is that they must get a buyer broker form filled out. Okay, so a lot of people, unless you're a pro and you don't know how to present that and state, your value and let them know that they potentially could be on the hook for paying you, that's I think a lot of inexperienced agents, a scary conversation to have if you don't know how to outline your value and be very clear in displaying that for you. So you guys as pros, make sure that you be able to lead with that because again, one of my favorite stats is that 60% of people that are buying a home also have a home to sell, right? Verified year after year by Zillow and National Association of Realtors. Okay. Now, this is, to me, has always been one of the biggest things. You guys hear about me talk about this literally week after week. This is, as we know, one of the main features of Blast is being able to double down and focus on the people that you know. So if we have their contact information, the goal is to get them to think of you when they think of real estate. So part of what we do with that is it's really important for us to bring a unique selling perspective or proposition to them. So what that means is, what if they can monitor their home's value? What if they're not ready to sell and, we'll sell in 24 months. But by you giving them something that they're looking at their house, such as their home report every single month, that's monitoring the trends and insights and giving that to them, you are able to speed that up because now all of a sudden in 6 months from now, they walk into a new home center and they fall in love with their dream home and now they're ready to go. And because you've been showing them the different options, such as the instant cash offer solutions that they can walk back in there now because they're dealing with a deadline. They click, explore this option. And now all of a sudden it turns into a ridiculously high quality lead for you and ends up being a 2-for-1 type deal. So these are the types of things, again, that I want to inspire you guys to bring value to the people that you know. Now, I want to actually kind of peel that back even more. So a lot of times we have our raving fans, right? Which is our past clients, friends, family, those types of things. People that when they do think of real estate, they do think of us in that particular arena. They'll refer us, etc. But then we also have this set database that I like to refer to as our not met database. So I have their name, I have their address, I have their contact information, and I acquired it from a lead source, database, data set pool, etc. Well, these are some of the biggest opportunities that I believe are overlooked in our industry. Okay, so allow me to expand on that. What I mean is we now give them something of value, and we want to track that engagement. So what does that mean? That means that we are tracking the opens and the click on the information that we're sending them. More times than not, we are going to be sending them an email, right? There's another solution here I'm going to talk about in just a second. But we're going to be sending them an email. And when they take an action inside of that email, right? So you want to give them, this is what Blast will do for you as an FYI. We'll track that open. And then once they click or take an action inside that email, it's going to capture that click and then report it back to you. right? So when we're deploying this to 1,000 people, and our data right now is showing that it's generating about 6 to 7 leads or 6 to 9 leads every single month per 1,000 people that you have on this. These are the people that are high intent purpose leads. Well, if you're at now, but we start capturing those clicks at more like 15% rate, which is what the numbers are, these are the people that you're now being able to take the conversation to them. And it's just a very simple conversation where it's like, hey, Jane, it's Eliot over at Zoodealio real estate team. Hey, just wanted to give you a quick call because I saw that you have been checking out your home's value and some insights and the different cash offer options that are available to you. And I just wanted to give you a quick service call and see if you had any questions on that. Oh, no, we just found it engaging and, we're not in the market or anything. I just was, curious about some things. Yeah, awesome. Hey, well, while I got you, just so you know, this is, no obligation. It'll get sent to you monthly and it'll always be there for you to look at so you can stay in the know for your house. But in the event that any of this ever made sense, one of the really cool options that we have for you is a cash offer that allows you to pick your close date, and the buyer even comes in, improves and rehabs the property, lifting its value up, and they actually give you the proceeds. It's a really cool opportunity, and the only place you can find it in the market is here. So in the event something like that happens or arises, don't hesitate to reach out. You have a great day, right? So it's just a simple, nice touch, right? Where I'm taking this not met, I'm almost kind of and now being able to introduce them. And so again, that's the triggers of certain tech stacks that we want to be working with. So if 3 months from now, all of a sudden you could see that they're repeatedly opening and engaging with your report because you're capturing those clicks and they're doing it multiple times in a week, well, that's going to trigger for you that they're actually doing something. And then it's so serendipitous, but no, it's your systems and your processes working for you. So those are the kinds of things I want to enlighten you guys to, that's where like top producers, top teams, lead managers, right? All of these different things that they're doing, why they're accelerating is because they have these types of things and these unfair advantages working for them and they're capitalizing on it. Last thing I want to talk about here is you guys being able to build a particular niche. This is something I'm diligently working on, and we're still a couple of months away on it here at Zoodealio, but just giving you a simple outline of what one could look like is you have people that are, regardless of what's going on with expensive capital, regardless of economic times, etc., that they are going to be likely sellers, right? So such as divorce, such as death, such as, for sale by owners, such as expireds, canceled, right? All those types of things. There's always going to be millions of transactions in America. And, again, I'm talking about everything from a 30,000 foot country view, but we also need to double down on our particular market. And we need to know our particular numbers that are going on and how much we're being hit or increasing in our particular market. What I want to share with you guys on being able to build a particular niche is finding one that makes sense for you. So for example, let's say that you have a certain hobby or you have a certain interest, you have a certain skill set, right, of people that you can work with. Well, what you want to do is take that particular niche piece, then you want to double down and focus that on the people that are likely to move inside of that. So for example, let's say that real estate's your second career. And you're retired, but you're actively going at it, really love it and enjoy it, but you also like to play a little bit of golf. Well, let's say that you're 65 years old. Well, I'm going to be focusing on the area that I want to work in, right? Like, let's say probably a 10-mile radius around my office. And anybody that has a house that's probably 55 years or older, that's 2 stories and 3,000 square feet, or even 2,500 square feet, I'm going to be focusing on them, because based on the data of that home, right, the specs of that home, there's a chance that they may be looking to sell it because they just no longer need a home that big. They don't want the stairs, right? Larger lots would be another one that I would really focus on. Anytime anybody's owned their house for 10 years or more, right? These are all just, again, likely data triggers that I'm going to focus on and make sure that my message is getting in front of them, and make sure that I'm getting the contact information from them to be able to send that to them. Now, the one other thing too that I was going to talk about before in a brief fashion here is rather than being able to send people and capture their engagement, is actually being able to send postcards. So you can send a postcard with this value proposition of, such as scan here and get your home's value instantly. Scan here and see your home's unique selling solutions instantly. Scan here and explore what cash buyers will pay for your home today, no obligation, right? So these are a few different CTAs that you can have on the postcard that they can scan, and it will immediately pull them in, and you can capture those scans, because that's the beauty of some of the scan. If you get the right QR partner in that, they will notify you of the actual address that scanned that. So it's a really cool opportunity, and I really suggest that you guys look into that and capitalize on that, because again, once we get that scan, even if you don't have their contact information, right? One of the things I'm working on here is giving that same said feature, pull them into a report, and it will trigger at a point where it say, hey, do you want to get a free monthly report? Yes, great. Well, what's the best email for us to send to, right? So it's going to be just a little bit of a lead capture nurture sequence, and we're going to lead with the value proposition of letting them fully test drive the car, and almost kind of like GMC's. Those of you guys that maybe remember this during, I think it was COVID or maybe before that. Remember where they would let you test drive the car for like 24 hours, and you could basically own the car to see if you really liked it. So this is that type of opportunity where we're going to really let them test drive the car, see all the trends, insights of their house, what they could rent it for, all this cool stuff. And then it'll prompt them at a key time to see if they want a free monthly report. And of course, we'll capture all of those engagements and interest and report that right back to you as a likely seller or not. With that said, I think that's my last slide. So I really want to get into dialogue here with us today. So if you guys would do me a favor, I'm really curious to hear your feedback. I have Jane Sanders here. Thank you so much for responding. I didn't get as many comments today, but if you guys would, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what I'm sharing. I'd love to hear your insights, how you're going to play this, or anything that I said. Please raise your hand, and I'll pull you on with me, and we could talk about a thing or two. I'd love to hear your guys' insight. Okay, so Jane Sanders says, no, there are many ways to work if needed, not much different from commercial. I agree. So commercial, right? Those of you guys that don't know, a buyer's representation is 1,000% paid by them. So like, for example, if you want to take somebody out and you're looking to lease a space, let's say you have a local pizza business and you need to go look at some net spaces and your triple net spaces and things like that. Those are different things that are there, and you're going to disclose the compensation before of the lease once the lease and all of that is procured. A lot of times, FYI, they'll even charge a retainer, right? It all depends. I've seen all kinds of different things inside of that area. As always, thank you so much for checking out today's episode. I hope that you guys got a ton of value out of this. There is just a tremendous amount of opportunity. Don't listen to those naysayers of a million real estate agents leaving the business. Capture this opportunity. Go out there and keep crushing it. And remember, the riches are always in the niches.